everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you a collaboration I did with Peg Robinson as part of our hashtag art tools this month for Art Joy of Sharing. This first thing I'm showing you is how you can take digital scans and you can reverse the color and make an interesting print using your computer. We are talking about art tools, and the way that we decided to talk about art tools this time is to talk about how to use your computer. I've been doing digital collaborations with different people for a while now, and basically all you do is you make a piece of art, a background usually because you're going to share it with someone else, and then you scan it with your computer and you send it to them digitally, and then it can be printed out. You've seen on my channel several of these, and I'll link some more at the end that you can watch if you haven't seen me do this before. But we wanted to make art for Earth Day. Happy Earth Day, that's today. And so that's my theme for my piece of art. But as far as the papers that I'm using for the collage, two of them were ones that I made, and two of them were ones that Peg made and sent to me digitally, which I printed out on inkjet paper, and then I sealed them with some clear gesso and a brayer just to make sure that they didn't run because I used an inkjet printer. I don't have access to a laser printer right now. And then two of the pieces are what I call reverses. So I took the scan, I put it in a free photo editing software that's called Paint. You can download that on your computer. And then like you saw at the beginning, I put them into that program and I reversed the colors. So it's an interesting thing to learn what the opposite, it's a good way to learn what the opposite of your colors are. So like with the orange one that had all the circles on it that Peg sent me, when I reversed it, it turned all blue because orange and blue are opposites on the color wheel. And then with the other one that I used, it's my blue and green and teal colored one that I made. I reversed it and it turned into purple and orange. So it's really kind of a fun thing to do. I did show you at the beginning all of them reversed as I was going through, but I only ended up printing two of them. So then this process, of course, you've seen me do a million times. I have made a drawing onto a piece of Arteza acrylic paper from their acrylic paper pad. It's like a thick, heavyweight pressed paper that has a texture on it that's like a canvas. So it's kind of like canvas paper. This is 9 by 12. I have some 9 by 12 frames that I ordered in bulk from Amazon, and so I thought if I liked the art that I would frame it. I don't know if I like it or not. I'm struggling right now, like most of you are, to be inspired to do anything other than eat and watch television because I'm still in quarantine with everyone else. We're all stuck at home, and I just cannot get going. I have been struggling to do anything. I'm so just not motivated. So I'm kind of forcing myself to do this. You know, sometimes if you just force it, you'll get into it, right? So I'm taking all those prints that I have, which have been sealed, like I said, with clear gesso, tearing them up, using little bits of them, and I've drawn an earth in the middle of my project. And then this is kind of the idea of the tree that holds up earth. It's an old, I think it might be a Norse legend, maybe. I'm not sure, but it may be in multiple cultures. I didn't do any research. I read a lot of fantasy books, so this is stuff that I come up, seeing or reading in fantasy books, and I know that it's all can be traced back. If you're interested, it can be traced back into different cultures' myths. Of course, I've got a female face within my tree because Mother Earth is always what we call our Earth. On this Earth Day today, it's kind of interesting to think about. One thing that we really are learning as we're all quarantined and we're stuck at home, and there's a lot less people driving, and there's a lot less people, everywhere in our cities, making pollution, that a lot of things are happening that are positive for the earth when we have less pollution. Smog has gone away in Los Angeles. The canals are clear in Venice. You know, these interesting things, and the animals are coming back, and you can see the sky. And that, that's maybe a thing that we could learn about our situation, and maybe why it happened, what caused it. Mother Earth, or nature, or whatever you want to call it, powerful, powerful stuff. They can mess us up. The earth can mess us up, and here comes this virus. Was it man-made? Was it not? I mean, there's all these conspiracy theories, but it could just be the earth's response to our continual abuse of it. We know that. We all know that we're abusing the earth. We all know that we use too much of the resources and we don't give back enough. And that all has repercussions. Everything that we do has a response eventually. So, it's something to think about. But anyway, I'm tearing up all these different pieces of paper. I've filled in my earth, and I've started building the tree, and I wanted the face section there of the tree to be a little bit lighter than the rest of it. So I picked one of the lighter colored papers, and I used a piece of tissue to kind of draw the shape and cut it out so that I would have a very definite shape there. This project did take me a long time, and so it is sped up to 8 times fast for most of the video. And I know that frustrates some of you, but the majority of people who watch my channel would prefer to watch a speed video. That's just statistics. So I know it's fast. I know it's hard to follow in some cases, but I'm trying to explain as I'm talking what I'm doing. I wanted the trunk of the tree to be fairly wide. I wanted it to have a lot of like a texture and gnarly sections, not physical texture, but visual texture. So I'm tearing little sections of paper and building up these kind of lines where the roots have grown on top of each other. If you've ever seen, there's a certain type of tree that grows in the swamp, and it's, oh gosh, I know what kind of tree it is, and I just can't remember. Wow. I should have done more research before I started talking. The kind of tree I'm thinking of, the branches up at the top eventually grow down and grow into the roots, and you get this really bumpy, kind of tangled looking root system. And it's interesting. It's a tropical tree. It's interesting to look at, and that's kind of the sort of trunk that I wanted, is real gnarled and bumpy and textured. Not sure that I achieved that, but I did use some interesting paper that Peg had made that has a specific stencil that's, I think, called Wisteria or something like that, from Stencil Girl. And it has that kind of, that paper has the kind of lines through it. And then I also tore some more pieces of paper in different colors. I've got browns and reds and oranges, to continue that kind of look on my tree. I'm not sure I succeeded. Sometimes you just don't like what you make, and this is not my favorite. I mean, I think it conveys a good message for Earth Day, but as far as being a favorite piece of art that I've made, it's really not. So they can't all be perfect, and it's just because I'm just not into it. I don't know. Anyway, so continuing on, I'm finding different pieces of paper on these ones that I have here that are similar in color. I want to have a lot of pattern and interest in my background as well, so I'm using light blues. And then this piece is the reverse of the orange one with the circles on it, and I'm using it up around the top so that it's kind of darker at the top going down to lighter at the bottom. And then I wasn't sure what to do about the actual foliage on the tree. There wasn't enough green paper, so I knew I wasn't going to make it green. I barely had any green paper, mostly orange and blue and turquoise. So I decided I would use these loopy sections of this piece of paper that had some spirals on it, if you remember. I started out with the spiral stencil when I was making that paper, and then I started drawing spirals with a crayon because it's fun to draw that shape, that circular spiral shape. And so I decided to use those shapes from the paper, tear them out, and put them on as the foliage of the tree. And whenever I'm coming up against the edge of the world there, I'm using what I used originally to make the circle for the world was this painter's tape that I have to the right side of the screen. And if I know that I'm going to be fitting my piece up against that world in the middle, the earth in the middle, I trace that shape along the edge and trim it so that it's got a clear line along the the edge of the earth section, so it's not overlapping in most cases. There are a few places where the branches overlap, where it's holding up like a bracket, the earth. Um, but yeah, one thing I did notice as I was doing all this is that my papers were just all kind of the same color. So there wasn't a lot of variance in the colors I was using. Just didn't have that much change. I decided one thing that I was thinking about is the northern lights and bright lights coming from the foliage of the tree because this is supposed to be a big, majestic, magical tree that's holding up the earth. And so I decided to add some of these purple and orange sections of the paper as well, just to give that foliage a little bit more interest and, different colors, different shades, just to make it a little bit different. Then I'm building back up some of my branches that got covered up when I put the foliage on. So yeah, just doing that. So then I know that this is all kind of the same color, the same tone. It's all similar. So I decided to do some glazing to kind of separate the sections of color. And I started out with some glazing medium, which is a product that just is paint without any pigment in it. And I mixed a little bit of light teal and titanium white into my glazing. And I started with this bottom section to kind of lighten and unify all that different pattern and shape that I had in there. Now, I don't want it to go away. I want it to just be a little bit more delineated. So I put the glazing mixture on and then I pat it off and rub it off with a wet baby wipe to just kind of see how that makes it seem like it's more an area of color instead of a whole bunch of different colors mixed together, and it makes the tree separate a little bit from the background. So then I did the same thing with a little bit of a color called Sedona, which is kind of a reddy orange oxide color, and I mixed that with the glazing and then painted that onto the trunk of the tree. And then the next one, I added some bright green color, a very kind of a limey, that actually might be called lime. I think it's a Dina Wakley, and a little bit of white, and went over the foliage trying to get some differentiation between the earth and the foliage. And then I added a little bit of that onto the green sections of, our continents, the continent areas. And then throughout this, I'm messing around with the face. The face is going to end up being painted with various things, and I'm kind of lightening up the top and then the bridge of the nose and things like that first, and then adding a little bit of that Sedona color in for some shadows. So then I thought I needed to do something with the blue on the earth, just make it a little bit more unified. So I glazed it with a medium blue color, and wiped that back. Just really trying to get separated sections of color that, it's not all right together in all one tone. Because that's kind of what happens, when you have all the same color of paper. I mean, ultimately there was different colors of paper. I'm not saying they're all the same, but everything was just kind of the same tone. We had oranges and teals and blues, basically, um, which are good earth colors. I needed more difference, more change in tone. So then I added a little bit of stenciling over the top of the foliage just to give it kind of an area where it might be broken up a little bit. And I used kind of a greenish teal dark. I think it's phthalo green, phthalo green blue maybe. Then I decided I needed a little bit more, so I got out my crayons. These are the Neocolor 2 water soluble crayons. And I started to draw some lines and shading with them, starting out with a dark brown, which I think is called Van Dyke brown. And it's probably the darkest brown that I have in the crayons. Then I added some shadow around the outside of the tree using a dark teal color, blending out with a water tint brush. And that does give it even more separation from the background. Just a little bit of separation is what I needed. Trying to not be all one tone. Then I got a dark blue, that's a Payne's Gray color, crayon out and did some work on the earth itself to make it stand out a little bit. And then I think some green, maybe green on the continents. Yeah, green on the continents a little bit. Wasn't a very dark color though. And then I started working on the face again, still using some of the titanium white in the Sedona color that are on my palette still and still wet. Using my water tank brush and blending her face. I want it to blend into the background, but not so much that you don't see it as one of the first things that you see when you look at the piece. So just adding light, adding shadow, adding light, adding shadow, letting it dry. I decided to make some more swirly shapes on the tree with a green crayon because all my swirls had kind of gotten lost a little bit when I glazed. And I did like the swirls. I thought the swirls were a good choice. So then I decided to get out my Stabilo All pencil. This is a highly water reactive black pencil and even darken up some of my lines a little bit more, illustration lines, giving shape and movement to things with the black pencil. And then I think I blended that some with my water brush, just a little bit of blending. Because I don't really want it to look exactly like pencil. I just want it to be some more black shading in there. Still working on the face. Mother Earth. I hope you're enjoying this video. Please remember to go and see what Peg did with the same papers. I don't know if she made any reverse papers, but I know she had the 4 papers, 2 of mine, 2 of hers to work with. And her video will be linked in the end card or the end screen as well as below the video in the show more box so that you can click on that and go and watch her video and make sure to give her some YouTube love, of course. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment or question below. Subscribe if you haven't already and turn on your notification bell so that you know there's a fresh new video coming out, which hasn't been very frequently lately. So it's a good idea to have your notification bells on so that you do know if I make a video. And of course, you can pin this on Pinterest, share it on Facebook. Any of those things help people find my channel and know that I'm making something that you find valuable. So my very last thing that I did was to use a white Posca pen and add just some sketchy highlight lines around here and there just to have some contrast, have some white contrast. And I actually, once I did that, that was probably when I finally thought it was okay. That was the very last thing I did, except for make some writing along the edges. I wrote, "The earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. So let's leave her in a better state than when we arrived on her." And I wrote that just in white along the edges there, those two curved edges. And that was the final thing I did to this page. I hope you've enjoyed it. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye bye.